Welcome to OmTimesTV, a division of OmTimes Media and Broadcasting. Welcome to the Perfect Life Awakening Show, hosted by Royce Morales. Royce has been a transformational facilitator, teaching groundbreaking, spiritually based courses for more than 4 decades. She is the author of 3 books about her teachings. Join Royce as she takes you on a journey into how to live your best life and find your true purpose through discovering the origins of subconscious, disempowering notions and releasing them. She talks with experts and inspiring people just like you who learned to trust their intuitive inner wisdom, which led to life-changing shifts. Today, her guests live an empowered existence and are helping change the world to a higher consciousness place based on truth and love. You deserve to awaken to, align with, and embody your true self and live a life filled with love. Transform yourself from triggered to empowered and create your perfect life. Here is your host, Royce Morales.
Hello, welcome everyone to my show. I'm so glad you're here. And I'm so glad to be talking to my amazing guest today. And we're going to be talking about something that I think has become kind of a catchphrase. Whoops, almost knocked my computer over. That wouldn't have been good. Anyway, it's become sort of a catchphrase with people saying that I'm highly sensitive, and I don't think people even really know what it means, but it sure sounds good. And it kind of makes you seem like you're really special or maybe like a victim of your sensitivity or, and maybe it even sounds cool. I don't know. But what we're going to talk about today is what does it really mean? What does highly sensitive really mean? And what does it mean, especially being an artist or being a creative of some kind? Does that automatically make you more sensitive or more vulnerable to being sensitive? Or, do only sensitive people become creative? There's so many different questions about this. So I have somebody who has all the answers to this. And my guest is Dr. Pranita Rao. And she's known for her work with highly sensitive artists, and she draws upon a very diverse background. She's a former dentist, a published science author, an intuitive abstract artist, and an energy worker. Talk about varied. That's really amazing. She also identifies, as a highly sensitive empath. She specializes in emotionally inspiring abstract art and helps artists get in touch with their gift and trust it and use that sensitivity in positive ways. And she does that by leveraging her own intuitive sensitivity. So that's really wonderful. Gosh, I don't even know what else to say. There's so much I can say about her, but I just want to introduce you and welcome you to this show. Thank you for being here all the way from India. And luckily she's a night owl, because what time is it over there now?
It's 9:40 p.m.
Wow. Well, I would be sound asleep. So let's talk about what it means. First of all, maybe tell us a little bit about your story. How did you go from being a dentist to doing what you do? That's pretty amazing too. Tell us that story.
Well, thank you for having me, Royce. It's so nice to have a chat with you about high sensitivity and everything under the umbrella of it. And although it's night, I'm really excited to have that chat. And I think it's something that really inspires me as a person to speak about it, because the need of the hour is to raise awareness. And talking about my story as a dentist, well, it sort of started after my 12th grade here in India. We do 11th and 12th, and then we pick a subject to sort of follow through. And my parents really wanted me to take up medicine. My granddad was a doctor, and my dad wasn't, and he really wanted one of his kids to be in the medical field. and my sister became an engineer, so it was just me. So I did have a liking for biology, but I spent the first 3 years of my dental school being all right with it. But from the fourth year, I started having severe panic attacks. I wasn't able to do much. I would have to rest a lot at home. And I would have a lot of anxiety bouts and depressive bouts. And at that point, I did not know what was happening because I was really good with my work and I've got a gold medal in dentistry. So it wasn't that I was a bad student, like I did not know what was happening. I was always in the teacher's good books and stuff like that. Uh, but little did I know that I had high sensitivity levels and I used to pick up my patient's pain, emotions, and make it my own, like highly sensitive people do or empaths do. And then after my graduation, which happened with a lot of effort from my end because it was getting really hard to cope with, I decided that I could not continue doing dentistry anymore. But then, as a person from the medical field, you spend 5 to 6 years just looking at medical books and patients. You don't know any other world. And let alone art, creativity was also not in the charts for me. I never thought I was creative. I just knew that I had a science background and I was good at it. But then I took a year's gap. I learned a language, I learned German, and I started exploring writing. And I always liked reading and was inspired by writers. So then I picked up writing and I started writing. I started writing crime thriller novels. Uh, and today I can't read them. I'm scared of it, what I wrote. But then that's how my journey into creativity started. I just allowed my imagination to soar. And then one thing led to another. I got an opportunity to go abroad and study. I've done my master's in science communication, which helped me sort of learn about writing some more and creativity some more. And when I was there, I also had the chance to explore a lot of museums, and a lot of them were art museums that were very inspiring again. And I think that's when I realized that I have this huge creative part to myself and an imaginative part that sort of imagines characters and things and objects and likes to present them in my course modules, whether it was like a through a presentation and or writing. It was just very inspiring for me. But at that point, I also started having a spiritual awakening while I was abroad. I started seeing things that I normally wouldn't see, feeling, sensing. All my senses started heightening. And there was a point where I remember I had to go to the emergency room because I started having a severe panic attack in the middle of the night out of nowhere. Um, and then when I went to the emergency room, the nurse said, "You're absolutely fine. Your vitals are fine. Your BP is fine. There's nothing medically wrong with you." And then I was wondering what's going on. And then there was a point when I was looking for answers. I was looking for questions, even. What's the right question to ask in such a situation? Because I have no clue what's happening. Um, by that time, I had some background in spirituality. I had started meditating and following mindfulness when I was 18 years old. So, although at that time I did not believe in God or anything that was unseen or cannot be seen.
That's my dog. I will mute. I knew she was going to do this at some point. Sorry.
Uh, but I believed in meditation and what it could do to calm down my senses. And then I just kept doing that while I was abroad. Um, and then one day I joined a group of people who were reading the Bible. I just joined them. There was a university picnic. And one of them got really intrigued by me because I was somebody who was not from the UK and was kind enough to offer a Bible reading, a personal Bible reading. And then I started meeting this person, and they opened me up to spirituality. And they also told me about the angels. And I think that was the first time I started believing in something bigger than me, higher than me. And while this was happening, my spiritual experiences started increasing. I would start feeling energy. I started perceiving images in my mind and hearing things I wouldn't hear before, not through my physical ears, but my inner ears. And I realized I needed more learning. I did not have the education at that point. I just was filled up with scientific, um, cognitively sort of inclined information about myself, but not really spiritual information that I needed. And then I came back to India, and um, I began looking for healers, coaches who could help me understand as to what was happening with me. And then one thing led to another. I started reading more about energetically sensitive people, emotionally vulnerable people, because there was a point when I used to take like 3 hours after I woke up to actually get on with my day, because I did not know how to place barriers around my energy field. And because my sensitivity levels were high, I would just keep absorbing everybody's energy around me. And that was a very challenging place to be in, because I could not separate what was mine and what was others. I would have a lot of physical symptoms like headaches and nausea and body pains, tiredness, fatigue. So then I just put myself through this grilling education sort of journey about myself. And I did healing courses like Reiki, pranic healing, angelic healing, shamanic healing, different types of energy healing modalities, took coaching from people who were highly sensitive as well, who taught me what it is to be highly sensitive. And then again, I started following the scientific data around high sensitivity. Because I have that background, I could pull up research papers, read the statistics, and understand that this is not just me, there's a whole population in the world that is highly sensitive. And people are working towards finding more and more coping tools and understanding the trait as well. I think my biggest discovery here was that all those anxiety attacks and panic attacks that were happening, I thought it was a sign of a mental health illness. But actually, what was happening is that I was just highly sensitive, and I did not have barriers energetically, emotionally, and even psychically, which became a point for fear to enter in different parts of my body and would give me a feeling that I'm having a panic attack, anxiety attack.
Yeah.
So, as and when I started learning about my gifts, my psychic gifts, my energetic gifts, I realized that I had more to learn, because then I discovered suddenly a lot of gifts, and that was also an overwhelming place to be in.
Yeah.
I was like, what am I going to do with all of this information about myself? This seems like 10 years more of learning, and by then I'd already spent 8 years of studying. It was quite challenging of a decision to make. But then I kept going, and I started meditating for long, long hours to set barriers. For a while, it used to work, but then I realized it wouldn't last, because then I had to meditate again. Uh, One day, my mom handed me a newspaper, and there was an art workshop advertised there. And she said, "Why don't you just go?" And then I did end up going. And I realized that art was doing something to my energy field. I was just not painting, and we were painting an elephant. That's all. It was nothing fancy. It was just a big, beautiful elephant. And I had never painted before that. It was just me trying something for myself. But it was doing something to my nervous system. I started feeling gentler, kinder to myself. I was having gentler thoughts about myself. My energy field was soothing. My gifts started settling. I was feeling more grounded, more in my body. And it was more fun as well, because it wasn't me closing my eyes for hours trying to focus. And then I started taking art lessons. For a year, I trained as an artist. And during that period, I realized that this could actually be a coping tool for somebody who's highly sensitive. because I tried different mediums of art and different types of art, different types of strokes, colors, brushes, even, and even canvas types, paper, cloth. They had a different effect on my nervous system. And it was beautiful because it wasn't spiritual per se. There was no god or goddess or angel involved, but it was also fun. The art class I was going to have wonderful music, and the teacher was close to my age. So all of that was quite inspiring for me. And then after I finished my art training, I started blogging about my experiences as a highly sensitive person and how art was helping me. And at that time, nobody was speaking about it. I think now we are now speaking about art therapy and how it affects emotional vulnerability. Uh, and then one thing led to another. I started including coaching into it. I trained as a coach. I started developing courses, and now I also have a YouTube channel where I actively educate people about high sensitivity and everything under that umbrella. So that's been my journey, Royce, from dentistry to being a coach.
Wow. Oh, I have so many questions. What an amazing journey that is. It really is. And it's interesting because it sort of started the opposite way with me. I was born very sensitive and also an artist. And that became a real challenge to kind of fit in with the world, to recognize what was going on. I think that's a real key that you said, because I didn't know. And I thought I was crazy half the time. And when people would say, "Oh, you're just so sensitive," I took it as an insult, you know? I thought, "Oh, yeah, there's something wrong with me. I shouldn't be this way." So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really interesting. Um, the other thing that you said that I thought was really important, which took me a long time to realize, is recognizing it is half the battle. So it's not just your sensitivity, it's the fact that you're picking up on stuff from out there and not recognizing that it's not yours, you know. So now I can recognize it almost instantly and go, "Oh, that's not mine," and just send it away, or find out what the message is that it's trying to give me. So
Yes.
that's really important. Yeah. So let's go back to the beginning. And how would you define a highly sensitive person? What does that really, if you were to write a paragraph about it, what would it be?
Well, first of all, I have a lot of compassion to your journey. First, thank you for sharing it. Um, the word sensitive. Yesterday, I was giving a talk in a corporate environment, and somebody cracked a joke around the word just sensitive. And I said, no, you can't say that because it is a very delicate word, and we use it quite graciously, not understanding the impact it can actually have on a sensitive or highly sensitive person. So I do empathize with your journey. I really wanted to put it out there. Uh, the term highly sensitive person has I think it's been like 3.5 years since I've been speaking about it. And when every time I bring it up to somebody who's never heard of it, they sort of shut down, especially if they are highly sensitive, because
Huh.
suddenly they realize that, oh my God, all this while, this is the term I was looking for. So I'm very cautious about defining it, and I don't try to use any scientific words because then it just gets worse. So my definition that I share with people who could be highly sensitive is that when a person has high awareness levels towards stimuli of different kinds and they pick up on it at one point in time and that is received by their body, different bodies, not just physical body, and they're aware of it, they could be highly sensitive. So I talk about awareness when I try to define high sensitivity, because under that umbrella you can understand rather than panic. Because if you start talking about how emotional one is, I think that just takes them to a different zone altogether. And I like to encourage people to look at the positives from way beginning, And I think it's good to understand high sensitivity, especially if you're starting out, as a higher awareness about things. So if I were to enter a cafe with somebody who's not highly sensitive, and I am here highly sensitive, and we enter a cafe and we are two different people seeing the same things, hearing the same sounds, and the other person who's not highly sensitive could pick up on five stimuli, but I would be picking up on 10, and the person would not even be processing most of it. They will be thinking about the coffee that they need to buy, but I would be processing the people chatting there, picking up on what they are chatting, making my own sort of reflections about it while looking at the menu, thinking about what other people are thinking, looking at the menu, the lighting, if it's harsh, how does it feel to my eyes, to my head? Does it bring up any pain or any sensation? What are the people around me feeling? I can also end up feeling all those emotions in my body. All of this is happening at one point in time, whereas the other person is still thinking about the order they need to purchase. So that's the difference. We're just aware of different stimuli, and the stimuli could include objects, our emotions, others' emotions, our thoughts, others' thoughts, our own gifts. If somebody is highly sensitive and psychic, they might be processing psychic information as well.
Right. Yes.
Uh, so all of it is happening at one point, and when people don't know about their gifts, about their sensitivity levels and awareness levels, they don't know how to place barriers, that's when the challenge arises. Because everything feels like their own, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
and they're not conscious of separating what's theirs and what's not theirs.
Yeah.
So I start talking about high sensitivity in that way. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just thinking of all the questions I have. I find that not only are we sensitive to walking into a room or meeting somebody and suddenly feeling angry or sad because we're picking up on their energy, but it also goes much bigger. I find that when stuff is going on the planet, even without reading the news, I feel it like,
Yeah.
oh my God, what is he doing now? And I'll read the news, and it kind of confirms the sensation that I was getting, the sensitivity of something big is happening. And I find, I don't know if I've shared this before on my show, but I have what I call an earthquake alarm. So three
Oh, wow.
days before a major earthquake, I suddenly feel this sensation of like that, and I hear, oh, there's going to be an earthquake. It never tells me where. I don't think I want to know where, but it's that sort of thing that sensitive people are aware of. And if you don't know
Yes.
what's going on, I have a friend who is the same level of sensitivity, but she doesn't understand it at all. So she'll call me up and she'll say, "Oh, I'm just feeling so weird lately." And I said, "Oh yeah, because this is going on and that's going on." And it kind of confirms why she's feeling the way she is. But if people don't recognize that you're picking stuff up, you can just go nuts with all the stuff that you could be picking up.
That is true. And like you said, when highly sensitive people are also psychically gifted, they're always in connection with their angels and guides and spirit, and they do receive such information. And again, if they're not conscious of the information as their own, they can think that they're having a mental health
Yeah,
condition.
yeah,
And they can just go down the wrong path, taking medication and just thinking
yes,
that they're not okay.
yes,
But what he says, and it's a very, I really empathize with people with such journeys because I had a similar one. And it can be quite painful just to visit doctors and take treatment for stuff that's not even true about you.
yeah,
Um, and then the whole scenario of when you share that with your friends and family, or sort of identified as somebody with a mental health issue, and that just becomes a different problem altogether. It has its set of challenges, and then you're trying to cope with that when the truth is something else altogether.
yeah,
Um, But what do you say about people picking up on collective problems is true. If there's a war happening in the world, I feel quite intensely in my body. And also, a lot of highly sensitive people serve the world in the inner planes during such times, which can make us grumpy or like just tired when we just get up because we think that nothing has happened. We just had a nice meal last night and slept off. We didn't do really too much. But in the inner planes, we must have really helped these people in war or in earthquakes. And then we get up feeling extremely tired, not knowing why we are tired. And this can happen to people who are energetically sensitive or at a soul level have accepted service work. And many highly sensitive people, empaths, are signed up for such service work. Um, it's a debate in my mind if it's a advantage or a disadvantage in such situations to be highly sensitive. But
Right.
it's the truth. I think I'll say that.
Yeah. I just keep thinking, what would the world be like if we not only were able to attune to our level of sensitivity, but trust it and assist others from that place. Um, go to a doctor and the doctor says, "Oh, no, 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 you're not depressed. You're just highly sensitive and you're picking up on all that stuff." So, what a different world it would be. And I'm sure that, I firmly believe that everybody is empathic to some degree, but I think we start shutting it down because it's not socially acceptable and, it's uncomfortable and it makes us feel like a victim and all of that stuff. So we just turn it off. But I think it's such a gift if we all just opened to it and said, yeah, okay, well, I'm feeling, you're kind of nervous and I'm feeling that. And maybe I can assist you with in some way with that, you know, so it's that sort of loving compassion that would come from it, you know?
Sounds true. But what I would like to add here is that there is a researcher called Dr. Judith Orloff. She talks a lot about empathy and empaths. And she says how people with high degree of empathy are different from people who are highly sensitive and are empaths. Because highly sensitive people and empaths have a mirror neuron system that's like a different set of nerve cells that mirror other people's pain and problems. So if you were to have a problem and I, as an empath, I'm listening to it, I can actually mirror the problem in my life as an empath. So if you had a cut on your hand and I'm listening to it and I'm tending to you and I'm caring for you, I can end up having a similar cut on my hand as well. And it sounds bizarre, but because the our mirror neuron systems and our body makeup of an empath is such that we can not only feel the other person's pain, problem, put ourselves in their shoes, but we can feel it to a degree that it feels like our own, and that can become our own. Which is why boundary setting is another sort of education that highly sensitive people need to do, not just energetically, but in other ways as well, because that's how they can protect themselves
Yeah.
as an empath. And yet, when we're highly empathetic, it can really change things for all of us, just at a global scale. I think we still have some time to get to that point, but I do believe, like you said, that we're evolving in that direction where more and more people are becoming empathetic, and even the kids that are born are highly open and conscious and aware. So I do believe what you say.
So let me ask you this. This is something that it took me quite a while to learn and accept. And I don't think it's contradicting what you're saying, but I think maybe it's part of it. Um, let's say I walk into a party and there are 10 people there, and all of a sudden I'm feeling angry and I realize it's not mine. And I'm able to kind of send it away with love and, thank it for showing up. And maybe I'm drawn to a person that I need to talk to and help them with their anger. That's one scenario. But let's say that same scenario happened. I'm, walk in, feel that anger. I know it's not mine, but on some level, maybe it is mine. Maybe it's showing up in my energy field for me to take a look at it. Why do I always pick up everybody's anger? What do I need to see that's being mirrored to me about my own suppressed anger? How do you feel about that?
Yes. So I'll say two things about it. The first one is that what you're saying is right. I think it follows the concept of resonance. What we are, sort of, we attract, sort of a thing. And if we are attracting somebody who's really angry, we do have work to do on ourselves, where we must have suppressed anger from our childhood, or our inner child is angry with us, or there's some sort of neglect happening within ourselves that we are not looking at, and we need to heal that. uh, but I also feel that when you are highly sensitive, because awareness does not work on bad or good, like bad emotion or good emotion, we're just aware of different types of emotions. And that could be, if we are in a park and there are two people, one person is really angry, one person is very happy, we can pick up both their emotions at the same time. Uh, and yes, we do have those happy and angry parts in ourselves. But I also feel there's a lot to do with awareness. And I've spent a lot of time working on my inner child as well, healing suppressed emotions. But there came a point where I was just tired of it. I felt that I was overdoing it. And I felt as though I'm just highly sensitive and I have to accept it, and rather set better energetic boundaries so that I don't have to get pulled into this whole Pandora's box that can open up when we are healing ourselves again and again, again and again. Sometimes it's not needed. So I think it's important to make that differentiation when we actually need healing for our own anger and resentment, and when we need to set boundaries so that we can just move on with our life.
Yeah. So it looks like we need to take a bit of a break, and I will be right back with my wonderful guest, Dr. Pranita Rao. We're talking about highly sensitive people, and we're going to get into a little bit more detail about it and some hints that if you are highly sensitive, what can you do with all of this? So we will be right back.
Thank you.
OmTimesTV. Do you crave joy but feel stuck? Do you go through life feeling constantly triggered and frustrated? Fear is likely the culprit, and subconscious fear is likely sabotaging you. Perfect Life Awakening is a time-tested, spiritually based approach to inner transformation created by Royce Morales. For over 40 years, she has helped people get to the origins of subconscious fears and ultimately help them find their true purpose and a life full of joy. Sign up for Perfect Life Awakening today at roycemorales.com. You deserve to go from triggered to empowered, shifting your life with Perfect Life Awakening. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back. I'm talking with Dr. Pranita Rao, and we're talking about highly sensitive people, especially creatives, and how all of that connects. But I wanted to ask you, does it seem like, and maybe this is a silly question, I don't know, but does it seem like people on a spiritual path just naturally are much more highly sensitive? And because of that, maybe there's a lot more self-doubt or thinking that you're crazy, or, how do those two go hand in hand? Spiritual people and highly sensitive people.
It's such a vast topic, and it's also slightly, I think everybody can have a personal answer about it. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but my opinion about that is uh, spirituality in its sense is very different for different people. Some think of spiritual when we say a god or goddess, there's a lot of idol worshipping that happens in India. That's spirituality for some. Or if they're just really a good person, that could also be spirituality for some. Mindfulness, meditation is spirituality for some. But I think what connects everybody and high sensitivity is that I think there comes a point where nothing in our material reality makes tangible sense about what's happening with us. And that's when we start looking for help above us. And here I don't mean above us as a hierarchy, saying that God is above us or angels are above us, but just from divine or from the universe. And we realize that not everything can be found in the material realm. We need support from light or source or the universe to help us understand what's actually happening. And I think highly sensitive people are very intuitive. They're born with higher levels of intuition. And intuition does not work much on logic. What might seem real, our intuition might say it's not, and what might not seem real, our intuition would say it is sometimes. And a lot of highly sensitive people, when they start following that intuition, they start walking on a journey filled with different spiritual experiences. Um, they listen to themselves, and then they start moving out of traditional roles, leaving jobs, changing careers, changing relationships, and following that inner voice and intuition. For me, it was leaving dentistry, and there was nobody who felt that was the right decision. And it was not logical because I had a gold medal by the end of it, and they were like, "Why would somebody do that? It does not make logical sense." But then I knew how much pain I was in, and it just didn't feel right. And similarly, I've come across so many people who don't feel good in their jobs, who don't feel good in relationships, who don't know what's going on with themselves, but know that there needs to be some change that needs to happen. And when I talk about my work as a highly sensitive person and just about high sensitivity, something in them sort of starts lighting up. They start realizing that there's a change that needs to be made. And in that moment, they might not accept that they're highly sensitive. But then they start talking about spirituality. They do start talking about angels or God or some sort of spiritual practice, journaling even or affirmations. And then they can sort of form connections to their high sensitivity through that. So I do feel that a lot of highly sensitive people are born with intuition that puts them on spiritual paths.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about creativity, because you mentioned that doing
Yes.
your art is incredibly
Yes.
therapeutic in terms of helping
Yes.
you kind of release the sensitivity or feel it in a different way. Talk about that a little bit. How does that work?
Thank you for asking. I love speaking about art. And I know you're an artist too, so I think
I'm
you'll have
a
a lot of
non-practicing
experience.
artist.
But I'm sure you have memories that could be very intimate, because art can do that, have really intimate experiences with yourself. One can have that.
Yeah.
Uh, I practice abstract art, and I am not good as a fine artist. I think I'm a lazy fine artist, because you need to be quite good with your lines and just really specific. And very quickly in my art training, I realized that I needed freedom in what I was making as an artist and a painter. Although I learned fine art and I learned different tools and techniques, I felt that when I was working with abstract art specifically, it was doing something more to my nervous system. It was giving me the space for the information processing to happen more easily, because I had the freedom for expressing. And creativity does that. It sort of helps us express what we are repressing or what we find very difficult to even tell ourselves, not even to others. And when you're highly sensitive and you're just finding out, or in the beginning stage of understanding, we don't know most of the times what is happening with us. And we don't know how to express something that we don't understand cognitively. So what I would do is I would just start painting everything that would arise for me every morning. I would sit with a canvas paper for 3 hours, and I would just almost vomit my words, my thoughts, my energy, my emotions onto the canvas paper. And at first, it wouldn't look pretty because they were just strokes and different colors. And I would just intuitively pick colors and intuitively make strokes. And I would just give myself the permission to be bad at it, whatever I was making. Because oftentimes, as an artist, you start off looking at really established artists and want to be like them, and then compare your art, and then you're like, I'm nothing. How do I continue painting? I don't think I fit in here. And I tried not doing that to myself, because the need for expression was really high for me. I did not know anybody else who was highly sensitive or even psychic. And I had a lot to share. And I'm a very chatty person. I need to chat about things to process data. And it was just very difficult because I did not know what to even, uh, what words to use to describe what I was going through as a highly sensitive person. And art was helping me, abstract art was helping me express all of that, that repressed energy of not even knowing what's happening. Um, and then when I started painting, I met other artists and started discussing about my trait. And they started realizing that they are also sensitive. And even abstract artists specifically would speak about how they would connect to art through their sensitivity. And they would I met artists who were psychic, who would paint certain images, symbols that meant something, that were guidance from their angels and guides. And you can do all of that with art if you're highly sensitive and gifted. But you, of course, have to believe in it, and it does take some time.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned, I would express my emotions, my energy, my thoughts, and it would help me process information a lot easier. And when you're highly sensitive and you're not there yet, not sort of, I wouldn't say good, but your boundaries are still weak enough for energy to still enter. You still need something more. That's when art can help, because it helps us feel less stimulated. And when you're somebody who's aware all the time, you're picking up data all the time, you can feel very stimulated. And you might find that a siren that is going off somewhere close to your apartment would be really disturbing for you, because you've already collected so much data in your nervous system, it hasn't been processed fully. All of that can feel too much. And oftentimes you can find highly sensitive people describing everything as, oh, it's too much, too intense to handle, to cope with, to even store in our bodies or nervous system. And art or creativity, because we're expressing everything, and if you're an abstract artist, you're just painting an abstract art because there's no limitation as to how you need to do it most of the times. You can end up processing a lot more data than you would otherwise because there is a sense of freedom.
That's I'm listening to you as a former art major in college, and all I'm thinking is that wouldn't have worked for me because it was highly competitive. It was, you have to learn the techniques properly. This is perspective and this is the color choices. I mean, there were so many rules and regulations
Yeah.
that it would have been absolutely impossible for me to just give myself permission to be free like that. So
Yes.
that's awesome. That's awesome that you can do that. I don't think I could, even at this point, because my background is so heavily um, artistic,
Yes.
shall we say. Yeah.
I understand that. And I did not go to an art school. I trained under an art teacher who was taking classes of art for art. So she had her own studio. She was an artist as well. So it wasn't that sort of strict. And there were times when she would get pissed that I was not following the techniques. But then I was just really having fun with abstract art, and I would just go
Right.
back and insist on just making that.
Yeah.
But there were some restrictions when I was learning as well. But then when I stopped my education, it wasn't a degree of sorts, so I could stop anytime I wanted, and it was more of a certification course. Um, I just went wild with my paints. I would just paint everything and anything. And then I started blogging. So each blog post, I would make a special artwork. And now I think there are over 150 blog posts or 170, close to 170 blog posts. So there are like original artworks for each blog post, most of them. And they're all inspired by my sensitivity, my psychic gifts. And because I'm an angelic medium, some are also inspired by angels. Uh, and I do understand the limitations of the art industry as well.
Yeah.
Uh, it can be there can be quite cutthroat competition, and that in itself can be quite challenging. Um, but I do feel that it's a gift because a lot of people are scared to try art, especially people who don't come from any creative backgrounds. When I pitch my work to people from the IT field, they sort of literally freeze sometimes because for them, art is just polar opposite to what they do, but it can help them. So I talk of art as a tool and a tool to cope with high sensitivity, not to really perfect it. And I don't advocate for perfect paintings either. I don't think that's a thing. We can't put that sort of pressure on artists. I think that's a whole other debate to have as to why do we even need to do that? Uh, because we can have fun following our own individual creative radar, and I talk about it a lot in my coaching and my blog about having unique creative radars that just are different from everybody else. Because as a creative, even though you're not practicing right now, but you might have a very highly developed creative radar that tells you that this is the form of art that suits you, or this is the form of art that you need to do as this unique, beautiful being, and you're gifted with. And I would have a different style of presenting my art, and a third person would have a different style. And I believe we need to follow that instead of following a set of manuals of how art is supposed to work.
Mhm.
Because we just then, I don't know, I don't think we're creating art.
Yeah. I think as you're talking, I'm thinking how sad it is that an artist like myself, that, in kindergarten was doing these amazing things, but every year through school, especially in art school, it got more and more and more suppressed, until I mean, literally, I haven't picked up a paintbrush in 20 years. you know? So yeah, it's sad what we do to people. It really is. So
Well,
tell
it's never too
us,
late.
I'm
You can
sorry, what?
also pick up, it's never too late. You can also pick up your brush now.
Well, my paintbrush is now my writing, so it's changed courses. It's fine.
Yes,
Yeah.
I understand.
So tell us. I know that you offer a lot of support to highly sensitive people. Tell us what you offer and how they can reach you, and give us maybe a little clue as to what somebody can do right now for themselves to support their sensitive nature.
Yes, of course. Um, so one of the tools that I suggest people to use, if not painting, if even painting feels like a big step, is to just visualize a golden light around themselves. To have that belief that a golden light, when we imagine that around our energy field, our physical body, our nervous system, in itself act as a protection tool from other people's energy, emotions, or just stimuli in general. Of course, it does take some time for the tool to work, especially if you don't have a belief system that supports visualizations or imagination in general. But if we do, and most people do, it can really create barriers for information to stop coming through. And I think that's a very quick, easy, simple tool to use for ourselves. Just imagining a golden light around ourselves, and it works. Um, about my coaching, I have a website called www.expressivesensitive.com. I've been hanging out there for the past 3.5 years. It's like my home now. Um, and people can just visit the website and go to the services page and book a coaching call with me if they want to. I also have a course that teaches the basics of high sensitivity and the impact of abstract art on our nervous system. People can also purchase the course and educate themselves and start learning online. It's a 2-hour self paced course about their sensitivity. If they're not comfortable reaching out for coaching. Sometimes I know it took me a while to actually have the courage to start learning one on one with a coach to learn about my gifts. Sometimes you just need to process your past experiences. Somebody's in that place, they can purchase the course. And I also have a blog that I've been working on for the past 3.5 years. Got ton of information about high sensitivity, psychic gifts, being an empath, grounding tools, abstract art, scientific data as well about high sensitivity and abstract art. So it's got a lot of education there. And I also have a YouTube channel that I actively sort of utilize to educate people globally. I realized after a point that not everybody is a reader, and I had to also talk and communicate and be on different social media platforms. So I'm also there on YouTube, and people can find me with the name Pranita/Rao. Um, yeah, and that's how I work with sensitive people. If somebody is already sensitive and they know it, and they're looking for extra support with energy work or they need healing of some sort, I also do Reiki and angelic healing, and I give intuitive guidance.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, keep up the good work. You're amazing. And give out the website one more time before we sign off.
Sure. So it's called www.expressivesensitive.com.
Expressivesensitive.com. Thank you so much. This was
Thank you.
very enlightening. And all
Thank
you sensitive people out there, you're going to change the world. Yes.
Yes.
And
Please
it was,
remember, sensitivity is your superpower. It's not a
yes,
curse.
it is. It really is. Thank you. And I will
Thank
see
you so
everybody
much for
next
having me.
week. Thank
Thanks.
you.